You're not crazy. You're not lazy. You're just living in a country where the system is bleeding you dry. In 2025, 63% of Americans can't cover a $500 emergency. Rent just hit a national average of $2,029. Groceries are up 25% since 2020. And even people making over $100,000 a year are living paycheck to paycheck. This isn't a tough season. It's a collapse in slow motion. People aren't chasing the American dream anymore. They're running from American debt, American rent, American despair, and the scariest part, this is the new normal. So before anyone tells you to just work harder or stop complaining, show them this list. Because we're not giving up on America. America is giving up on us. 10. Renting is the new luxury. And we're not invited. You ever just sit back and realize your entire paycheck is basically gone before you even get it? Like you're just out here working 40, 50, sometimes 60 hours a week just to hand it right over to your landlord like you're paying off a debt for a crime you didn't commit. In 2025, the national median rent is now sitting at $2,029 a month, and that's after a so-called cool-down. That's more than half of what the average full-time worker takes home. And don't even get me started if you live in cities like Austin, Phoenix, or Miami, where rents have jumped 30% or more in the last 4 years. And it's not just big cities anymore. Rural towns are catching up because investors are snatching up single-family homes like Pokemon cards, turning them into overpriced Airbnbs or short-term rentals. So now even places that used to be affordable are acting like they're Beverly Hills. The result? Millions of Americans, people with jobs, people with degrees, people who don't even go out or buy Starbucks anymore, are getting squeezed out. Roommates in your 30s isn't a phase anymore. It's a lifestyle. Families are living in RVs. Young couples are raising babies in their cars. And let's be real. Affordable housing has become a political buzzword that means absolutely nothing when the waiting lists for Section 8 vouchers are closed for years in some cities. Or you get lucky and get a unit. But the neighborhood is riddled with crime because it's been neglected for decades. America has turned housing into a game of musical chairs. And if you're not already sitting, good luck ever finding a seat. And don't believe the headlines saying rent is stabilizing. Stabilized at unaffordable is still unaffordable. People are giving up not because they're lazy, not because they're ungrateful, but because no matter how hard they work, the roof over their heads feels like a privilege they'll never afford. And that's a country breaking its own people. 9. Health insurance isn't healthcare. It's a gamble you pay for, even when you lose. Nobody talks about this enough, but being insured in America doesn't actually mean you can afford to be sick. You might be paying $700 plus a month for insurance, through your job, through the marketplace, through some overpriced private plan, and still end up with a $5,000 deductible before they cover anything. What does that even mean? It means you could be spending $8,000 a year just to have the privilege of paying more out of pocket if you ever get seriously ill. That's not insurance. That's a hostage situation with a copay. And don't even try to go to the ER. One visit for a twisted ankle or a minor panic attack, and you're walking out with a $3,000 bill if they run tests. And if you're uninsured, God help you. People are literally dying because they waited too long to go to the hospital. Not because they were careless, but because they couldn't afford to rack up another bill. 40% of Americans are currently in medical debt, and over half of bankruptcies in the U.S. are linked to health expenses. In the richest country in the world, you'd think we'd at least be able to get a strep test without selling a kidney. And now in 2025, everything is getting more expensive again. Insulin, cancer drugs, basic generics. The average price of a 30-day prescription has jumped 13% since 2022. Mental health coverage? Good luck finding a therapist that takes insurance and isn't booked for 6 months. It's so bad that TikTok therapy has replaced actual therapy. We're not just talking about affordability anymore. We're talking about access, about survival, about how preventable deaths are becoming the norm, because people can't navigate the labyrinth of billing codes and surprise charges. America doesn't have a healthcare system. It has a health business, and you better be rich enough to play the game, or lucky enough not to need it. Otherwise, one diagnosis and you're financially ruined. That's not care. That's cruelty with a logo. 8. Groceries are eating us alive, and it's not even good food. It used to be that you could walk into a grocery store with $100 and leave with a full cart. Now, you might as well bring that $100 just to feel pain. The USDA's own data shows the cost of food at home has jumped 25% since 2020, and it's not slowing down. Eggs might have cooled off from their $8 a dozen peak, but everything else is still rising. Chicken? up 16% in some states. Milk, up 14%. And don't even try to eat healthy. A decent-sized bag of organic salad mix is $7.99 now for lettuce. My guy. Avocados? 3 for $6. A small salmon fillet is like buying a steak dinner. And yet, processed garbage, sugar-laden cereals, ramen noodles, frozen pizzas somehow remain cheap and stacked to the ceiling. Why? Because it's subsidized to keep people eating filler food that doesn't actually nourish them. The result? America has become the land of the underfed and the overfat. People are struggling with malnutrition and obesity at the same time. And if you're trying to feed kids, forget it. A box of granola bars for school lunch is pushing $9. Formula is still rationed in some areas. And SNAP benefits, which millions rely on, haven't kept pace. The max allotment for a single adult? $291 a month. You tell me how that stretches over 30 days when a single trip to Aldi for the basics costs $80. The most twisted part? We waste 30 to 40% of our food supply due to spoilage, logistics, and overstock, while millions are skipping meals. And yet nobody talks about how food insecurity is no longer just a poor people problem. It's a middle-class problem. It's a two-income household problem. It's a we have jobs but we can't afford to eat and pay rent kind of problem. You can cut out restaurants, fast food, Starbucks, all that. But you still need to eat. And eating is bankrupting us. 7-car ownership is a scam. But you can't function without one. Let's talk about how America basically punishes you for needing a car in a country where public transit barely exists outside a few cities. It's like they designed this place to force everyone to buy a vehicle, and then made sure the price of owning one would wreck you. The average used car in 2025 is $26,091 for a used car. Not a fancy Tesla, not a luxury sedan, we're talking 80,000 miles and a missing hubcap. New cars? Try $47,500 on average, according to Kelley Blue Book. Now stack that with insurance, which is up 22% year over year, gas prices creeping back over $4/gallon in most states, and maintenance. One blown tire or busted alternator? That's $600, easy. You're not saving up for a vacation, you're saving up in case your transmission fails, and if you miss a payment, boom. Repossession is up over 30% this year alone, and they'll take it from your driveway at 3 a.m. with no warning. Good luck getting to work after that. In places like Texas, Florida, or the Midwest, no car means no job. There's no bus, no subway, no bike path. You're stuck. And that's the trap. They make car ownership the only viable option and then turn it into another subscription you can't cancel. And don't let the banks fool you either. More than half of all car loans issued in 2023 to 2024 were over 72 months long. That's 6 years of debt on a car that'll be worth nothing in 4. And when your car breaks down before the loan ends, you're still paying. America's car culture isn't freedom. It's financial imprisonment with cup holders. And every toll, ticket, parking meter, and $900 brake job is just another reminder that the system isn't built for us. It's built to bleed us dry. You need a car to survive. And surviving it is the hard part. 6 NAKENS, wages are frozen in time, while everything else accelerates. Okay, let's be honest. How many of us are making more than we were 5 years ago? And I don't mean a tiny raise, I mean actual more, like enough to beat inflation. Because for most of us, wages are stuck in the mud while prices are sprinting like Usain Bolt. The federal minimum wage is still $7.25 an hour. That's been the law since 2009, over 16 years without an update. Meanwhile, the cost of living has gone up over 60% in that same time. Rent doubled. Healthcare doubled. College tuition doubled. Groceries basically tripled. But your paycheck? If it's gone up at all, it's likely by 1 to 2% a year. And that's not keeping up. The real wage growth in America from 2021 to 2024 has actually declined once you factor in inflation. And get this, 61% of workers in the U.S. now live paycheck to paycheck, including people making $100K or more. That's not laziness, that's structural failure. Employers are quick to talk about labor shortages and nobody wants to work, but what they really mean is nobody wants to be exploited for poverty wages anymore. And that's fair, yet somehow corporations are making record profits while offering their workers crumbs. Stock buybacks are at an all-time high. CEO pay is up more than 1,200% since 1978, while worker pay is up just 15% in that same period. 15%, over 46 years. This isn't a labor market, It's legalized theft. And for Gen Z and millennials, the job ladder doesn't even exist anymore. It's just side hustles, burnout, and applying to 300 jobs on LinkedIn for a position that pays $38K with no benefits and a toxic work environment. Wages in America are no longer a path to freedom. They're a leash, just long enough to keep you showing up, but never long enough to escape. 5. Childcare costs more than a mortgage, and parents are breaking. Nobody tells you that having a kid in America means giving up your financial future. Not just your free time, not just your sleep. We're talking about your savings, your career, your mental health, your everything. In 2025, the average cost of full-time childcare in the U.S. is now over $16,000 per year per child. That's more than a year of in-state college tuition in most states. And that's for average care, not elite private Montessori programs with daily yoga. We're talking about fluorescent-lit daycares, where your kid might get 10 minutes of personalized attention. For many parents, the cost of daycare is higher than their rent or mortgage. Think about that. It's literally cheaper to live in a house than to pay someone to keep your child safe while you work. And that's assuming you can even find a spot. Since COVID, the U.S. has lost over 70,000 childcare workers, and more than 10,000 centers have closed for good. The result? Waitlists that last a year or more, even in suburban areas. Working-class families are left juggling jobs and trading shifts just to avoid leaving a toddler alone. Some parents are literally quitting their careers, walking away from degrees and experience because staying home costs less than paying for care. And for single parents, it's damn near impossible. You're either overpaying for care, under-earning at work, or burning out trying to do both. And don't even get me started on after-school care for older kids. That's an extra fee, an extra time crunch, and another thing to coordinate when you're already drowning. What's wild is that other countries, like France, Sweden, even parts of Eastern Europe, offer heavily subsidized childcare for pennies on the dollar. Here in America, you're on your own. And we wonder why people are having fewer kids. It's not that they don't want families, it's that the math doesn't work. You shouldn't have to choose between raising your kid and affording to live. But in this country, that choice is forced on millions, and people are exhausted from making it. College is a debt trap with no exit, no ROI, and no forgiveness. You know what hurts the most? Doing everything right and still losing. You went to school, you worked hard, you got the degree, and now you're sitting on $80,000 in student loan debt for a job that barely covers your rent. Welcome to the great American higher education scam. As of 2025, total student loan debt has hit $1.77 trillion. That's trillion with a T. And the average monthly payment for borrowers under 40 is now $503. That's if you're lucky. If you went to a private school, if you took out loans for grad school, you might be paying $1, $200 plus a month for a piece of paper that got you a job making $19/hour. And let's not forget that nearly 40% of borrowers didn't even finish their degree, meaning they're stuck with the debt, but none of the credentials. And the kicker? Interest. Even if you pay consistently for years, your balance might barely budge because of how these loans are structured. Miss a few months, and the amount grows. It's designed that way. And don't even think about bankruptcy. Student loans are one of the only debts in America that cannot be discharged, no matter how broke you are. That's not a system, that's a sentence. And sure, we've heard about forgiveness plans and income-based repayment, but most of those are bureaucratic mazes. PSLF, Public Service Loan Forgiveness, has a rejection rate of 97% in some years. Meanwhile, colleges are raking in record tuition, endowment funds are bloated, and university presidents are making millions, all while they hand out degrees in fields that haven't led to good-paying jobs since 2008. The return on investment? Gone. Even tech and finance roles now demand unpaid internships and 3-5 years experience just to qualify. People are giving up. Not because they lack ambition, but because they're trapped in a system that charges luxury prices for a degree and delivers minimum wage results. Education should be a ladder, not an anchor. But in America, it's both. And we're sinking. 3 utility bills are becoming a second rent. And there's no cap. Let me hit you with something that most people don't realize until it's already too late. Your utility bills are slowly replacing your rent as the biggest monthly expense. We're not just talking about lights and heat anymore. It's water, sewage, trash, internet, phone, natural gas, electricity, and each one feels like it's competing to bankrupt you faster. In 2025, electricity prices are up 29% compared to just 5 years ago. Natural gas? Up 44%. Water bills in major cities have tripled since 2000. And with climate change and infrastructure collapse, these rates aren't going down, they're exploding. Texas saw $1,200 electric bills during a heat wave. California homeowners are being charged peak pricing penalties if they dare to turn on the AC during summer. And broadband, which we all need now to work, study, and live, is averaging $84/month in the US, which is 30 to 50% higher than in Europe. What's worse is that you can't shop around. Most utility providers are monopolies, and you're stuck with whatever price they decide. There's no competition. There's no negotiation. And if you're late, a $10 bill becomes $60 with late fees, reconnection fees, service deposits. Get behind for a few months, and they'll cut you off in the middle of winter or a heat wave. And yeah, people die from that. Elderly people freezing in their homes. Children in stifling apartments. This is happening now, not in a dystopian novel. Families are forced to choose. Pay the rent or keep the lights on. Pay the gas bill or feed the kids. You turn off the AC, bundle up in blankets, take cold showers just to survive the month. And what's the government doing? Approving more rate hikes, deregulating more services, and calling it free market efficiency. Utilities were supposed to be public goods. Now they're profit centers. Another way to squeeze the working class dry. And the worst part? You can't escape them. Even if you downsize, even if you go off-grid, they find a way to bill you anyway. There is no exit, only the meter, always running. 2. The job market is a rigged game with 400 applicants per role. I need you to really sit with this. We're sending out hundreds of resumes, customizing cover letters, cleaning up LinkedIns, doing mock interviews, adding certifications, and still, in 2025, the job market is a casino, and the house always wins. Entry-level jobs demand 5 years of experience. Remote jobs suddenly require you to be in office 3 days a week. You apply to 300 positions and hear back from 5 maybe. And when you finally land an interview, they ghost you, or lowball you with a salary that hasn't moved since 2016. The average job posting in white-collar sectors like tech, finance, and media now receives over 400 applications within the first 48 hours. 400. And it's not even for glamorous jobs. We're talking about $22/hour admin roles with no benefits and rotating weekends. AI is automating more of the hiring process too, meaning your resume might never even reach human eyes. Applicant tracking systems, ATS, reject you before a recruiter even opens the file. And even if you get in, half of these jobs pay so little you'd still qualify for government assistance. But they want a bachelor's degree, full availability, weekend hours, bilingual preferred, and oh, don't forget passion. What about passion for survival? Passion for not being broke? Nobody's talking about how soul-crushing it is to constantly apply, prep, interview, and get ghosted. And even if you land a job, half of them are contract gigs, at-will employment, no health insurance, no PTO, no job security. Just a rotating door of burnout. We are overworked and underpaid and yet blamed for being entitled. People are giving up because the labor market isn't a ladder anymore. It's a maze designed to waste your time and drain your hope. And the truth is, the jobs are out there. They're just not good jobs. Not stable. Not livable. And we're tired of chasing scraps while companies post record profits and give their executives bonuses the size of our lifetime earnings. 1. The American dream is a lie, and everyone knows it now. This is the hard truth nobody wants to say out loud, but I will. The American dream is dead, and we didn't kill it. The system did. That dream they sold us? Work hard, get a degree, buy a house, raise a family, retire with dignity. That was the blueprint. That was the promise. And now, it's a cruel joke. Homeownership is a fantasy, unless you're sitting on a 6-figure inheritance or a miracle. Retirement? Hey Social Security is projected to be insolvent by 2033, and most of us have less than $10,000 saved, if anything at all. The average age for paying off student loans is now well into your 50s, and half the jobs that used to support a family are extinct or outsourced. And all of that might be survivable if we felt safe, but we don't. Not from crime, not from climate change, not from wildfires, hurricanes, blackouts, pandemics, war. We live in the wealthiest country on earth, and 70% of Americans still say they're financially anxious every single day. We're not building anything anymore. We're just treading water or sinking. And what makes it worse? We're gaslit constantly. Told we just need to work harder. Be more grateful. Stop buying lattes. But deep down, we all know the truth. It's not us. It's the system. A rigged game where billionaires get bailouts and we get collection calls. Where teachers need GoFundMe pages to buy classroom supplies and nurses work double shifts with no support. Where homelessness is exploding, birth rates are falling, and more Americans are considering leaving the country than ever before. People aren't giving up because they're weak. They're giving up because they're exhausted. Because the dream is broken, the math doesn't add up, and no one is coming to save us. So if you're tired, if you're barely hanging on, if you feel like you're screaming into a void while everyone else pretends this is fine, you're not alone. This is what it feels like when a nation stops working for its own people. We're not lazy. We're not entitled. We're exhausted from running on a treadmill that's been rigged to go nowhere. Over 75% of Americans say the country is on the wrong track, and more than half of Gen Z says they no longer believe in the American dream at all. And why would they? When food is a luxury, when housing is out of reach, when full-time work doesn't even guarantee survival, that's not freedom, that's economic warfare. Quiet, slow, legal, but still deadly. And the worst part? No one's coming to save us. Not the politicians. Not the billionaires. Not the corporations handing out pink slips with one hand while buying back stocks with the other. No, it's us. Us or no one. That's the only truth left. So share this with someone who's feeling like they're the only one drowning. Let them know they're not crazy. This is really happening. And until we start saying it out loud, until we stop pretending this is just a phase, they'll keep bleeding us, inch by inch, dollar by dollar, year by year, because people aren't giving up on America. America gave up on them first.